all flights can take off as planned. French politicians have ousted their Prime Minister, François Bayrou, over proposed spending cuts, putting pressure on the president. Emmanuel Macron's looking for his 5th PM in just 2 years, but Marine Le Pen of the far right is demanding fresh elections. Sky's Europe correspondent Alistair Bunkle says it could have consequences for the president's political future.
He's got no real good choices, and there is a growing voice within French political circles and France itself that the only way through this deadlock now is for the man at the top, is for the French President Emmanuel Macron to leave office.
The UK could suspend visas from countries that don't agree a migrant returns deal under a new Home Secretary who's promising to do whatever it takes to stop small boat crossings. Shabana Mahmood's had her first full working day in her new job, hosting officials from the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Jaguar Land Rover production staff are being kept home for another day. Factory workers have been told not to come in until at least Wednesday because of a cyber attack. And Prince Harry's spoken of challenging relationships with siblings at a charity awards ceremony in central London. Earlier, the Duke of Sussex paid his private respects to the late Queen in Windsor on the 3rd anniversary of her death. And for a news bulletin when you want it, search for the Times News Briefing on any podcast platform.
This is Times Radio.
What makes you feel good?
A hot cup of tea.
The smell of freshly cut grass.
Switching my home insurance with AgeCo feels good. They're owned by Age UK and give their profits to the charity. And there's no extra cost for paying monthly.
Switch with AgeCo today for insurance you can feel good about. Visit ageco.co.uk to get your quote now. Home insurance provided by Liverpool Victoria Insurance Company Limited.
I want to see more of the world, so I need my investments to do the same. F&C Investment Trust searches out the world's leading companies and puts my money to work, from the UK to the US and Asia, all through one simple investment. So when it's time to say goodbye work, I'll be saying hello world.
Find F&C on all major investment platforms. It's smart to start with F&C. Capital at risk. This F&C Investment Trust advert is approved for distribution by Columbia Threadneedle Management Limited, February 2025.
Get a first look at tomorrow morning's front pages. Tonight from 10 with Carol Walker on Times Radio.
The Evening Edition with Kate Borsay on Times Radio.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
It is that time of night again. Good evening, by the way. It's Kate Borsay. It is the Evening Edition, and it's time for the Trump Dump, where we cross the pond to get the very latest news coming out of Washington. I'm joined by David Charter, US Assistant Editor for The Times. Hi, David.
Good afternoon from Washington, D.C.
Great to have you back again. President Trump made a speech, didn't he? A pretty notable speech this afternoon around 3 o'clock our time, and suggested in it that domestic violence isn't a real crime. He was making the speech at the Museum of the Bible in Washington. Trump was talking about the eradication of crime in D.C. under his presidency when he made the controversial remark.
It's more than 87%, virtually nothing, and much lesser things that take place in the home they call crime. You know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say this was a crime, see? So now I can't claim 100%. But we are a safe city. You can walk to a restaurant, you can walk to the White House if you work there, you can walk to the Capitol. And even the Democrats say, I can't believe it, but they don't want to admit it, but I can't believe it. We could do the same thing in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. We did it. We saved Los Angeles.
How's that gone down in Washington? I wonder if this sort of line has started to do the rounds yet, David.
I would say there's lots of comments about it online. You can see quite a lot, actually. It's really become quite a talking point on X, for example. People recalling that Trump's late first wife, Ivana, made some allegations against him that never made it to a prosecution or anything, but were rehearsed in a book, and really that it's just it's the inverse of Trump's fantastic exaggerations that he makes frequently. Obviously, he talked up Washington, D.C. as being the most dangerous place in the world, which it isn't, as part of his justification for the crackdown and bringing in the National Guard and federal agents and everything. Now he's saying he's gone the other way and saying that there's a complete eradication of crime. And as part of that, he's made these quite extraordinary comments that domestic violence doesn't really count. So that's where we're at, really. It's when you listen to it, it was a fairly standard Trump speech, I would say, with lots of exaggerations, and that was one of them.
Do you think he's going to have to apologise for his comments, or will it just sort of fall into that box of pure Trump?
Oh, no, he won't apologise. The White House has been contacted by some of the liberal media in America. And the response is that, of course, he did not mean to play down or belittle any domestic crime. That's the liberal media taking it completely out of context. So, as I think, as is the familiar pattern, Donald Trump will not back down and will defend, and his White House will defend him to the hilt.
He also used the speech to attack Tom Hanks. Tell us how.
Well, he posted before the speech, and he mentioned it in his speech, that the West Point Alumni Association was going to give its big annual award to Tom Hanks, the actor. But it's at the last minute, this has been cancelled. There's no word whether the entire award is cancelled or whether it's just Tom Hanks, but he's not going to get his parade and his medal from West Point, which is the premier military academy of America. And Trump praised this as part of his, in sync with his crackdown on diversity and initiatives at America's colleges, and particularly at the Army College, which has ended. For example, it's scrapped its special clubs that it had for black and female students, and he sees it as part of the winning the war against woke, which was another feature of his speech, actually, to the Bible Museum. How that the woke agenda was like a weed, and you've got to keep pulling it out whenever it starts growing again. And this led him into his approval of Tom Hanks having his award cancelled, because you may recall that Tom Hanks backed Joe Biden for president in 2020, so that would please Trump, I think.
Okay. Quite a significant decision from the Supreme Court today. They've backed Donald Trump's aggressive immigration raids. These, of course, began in Los Angeles, and there was a court, wasn't there, last week that ruled that the use of the National Guard in Los Angeles was excessive. You'll probably have a more formal definition than that, but that's just reflecting on that. But, this sort of, targeting of crime and of immigrants does extend to other cities as well. So just tell us what the crux of the Supreme Court's decision is today.
Yeah, this is also about Los Angeles, actually. It's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, which is a federal agency and perfectly entitled to go anywhere in America to arrest people in the country illegally and deport them if they've got no grounds to stay. And this was an appeal by the Trump administration that allows they're called ICE agents, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, allows ICE agents to go to places where immigrants congregate. And the case in point actually was a Home Depot, which is a big DIY store here, where people offer their labor for the day and they gather in the morning to be picked up by construction sites or builders or whatever. And instead of being picked up by builders, they were picked up by the federal agents and begin the process of deportation. And the claim was that this was racial profiling. It's going after people who look like Hispanic people, who often congregate and offer their labour like this. And the Supreme Court's once again on a political split, 6-3. It's 6 Conservative judges against 3 Liberal judges. The 6 Conservative judges said this is perfectly okay. I mean, how else are ICE supposed to do their job if they can't go to places where there are lots of immigrants?
Okay, all right. Will that have sort of further ramifications, do you think, for the way ICE are able to operate?
Oh, this gives them a bit of a freer hand, definitely. As it's a Supreme Court ruling, it won't just apply to Los Angeles, it will apply to the whole country. And we're seeing in various cities that have designated themselves sanctuary cities, which means the local authorities will not help in any way the federal authorities. It'll give the federal authorities a lot more power, I think, and a lot more confidence to go to raid places where they think there are immigrants working.
This just in, David, and you'll know very well about this birthday note that Donald Trump is said to have sent to Jeffrey Epstein. The House Democrats Oversight Committee has actually released a scanned copy of it. It was compiled into an album of messages to celebrate Epstein's 50th birthday in 2003. The note to Epstein includes a conversation between Trump and the late sex offender with a female silhouette drawn around it. The president's signature is at the bottom of the note, and there's a sort of a female body drawn around it, and this is a conversation. Trump talks about a wonderful secret between the two of them, and the Oversight Dems have tweeted and said, what is the wonderful secret? What's he hiding? Release the files. Trump's denied writing a letter for this birthday book. He's even, sued the Wall Street Journal for defamation when they first reported this. But this, according to the House Oversight Committee, is the note in question. I don't know if you've seen it or where this will take the argument, really.
Well, I don't think it's very helpful for Donald Trump, because this is the story that won't go away for months now. And it not just Democrats, but many people who voted for Trump, I would say, have been calling upon the administration to just release everything you've got. Let's have a look at it. Let's see what there is. Why are you keeping documents from the public gaze? And this became a cause célèbre, this particular document. It was for Epstein's 50th birthday, I believe, and Trump said it either didn't exist or that he would never write something like that. He said it was never in his style. He claimed to really have no knowledge of it at all. If it's been produced, I would say that puts him on the back foot again.
Yeah.
Well, wait and hear what his latest defence is, I suppose, to that.
Yes, watch this space on Truth Social, I think, probably. In other news, the appeals court upheld an $83 million verdict against President Trump for defaming magazine writer E. Jean Carroll in 2019. The court found the jury award was reasonable, given the evidence presented at the trial. This is Donald Trump's attempt, really, to try and get out of paying this $83 million in damages.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely. He thought this was a massively exaggerated amount of money to pay, especially as he denied sexual abuse of E. Jean Carroll, which was the first case she won. She won $5 million in that first case, but this was the second case, was all about defamation. It was all about Donald Trump repeating attacks on her, saying that she wasn't his type, and it was all made up by her to sell a book or for her own reasons. And he just kept on repeating these accusations, which have been found to have, on the balance of probabilities in a civil case, had been found to be wrong. And so the judge threw the book at him in the original case and said it's going to cost you $83.3 million in damages. And the appeals tribunal has looked at it and said, we agree, because E. Jean Carroll has not only faced having all these verbal attacks, but she's had numerous death threats as well as a result of her entanglement with Donald Trump. And so, same old story, I think, with these Trump cases. We're going to see this one end up at the Supreme Court eventually. I don't know when. And we'll see what the Conservative majority on the Supreme Court make of this one.
Yeah, his lawyers appointed to the Supreme Court's ruling last year, saying the president has immunity for official acts, to argue that the damages should be overturned. I really want to talk about the US Open because Trump was booed. Can we just have a little listen to that and then just a quick comment on this, David, if you can? So this is what happened at the US Open final. It was delayed last night, Trump being late. He was booed during the match. Was that just anger about him being late, or is that generally what tennis crowds at the US Open think of Donald Trump these days?
Well, it's a bit of both, but he wasn't that Trump was late. It was that his arrival caused an extra security. Everybody had to be put through extra security. They'd been carrying things with them and given freebies and gifts that they weren't allowed to bring into the court in case they threw them, I suppose. And so even when they started 48 minutes late, some people were still outside. And so when he flashed up on the screen during the game, I think he flashed up a couple of times, and I think it was the first time he flashed up on the screen that there was quite a lot of booing heard. And we all know, of course, that Donald Trump born and grew up in New York, but he's left it behind because he hasn't been very popular there, and he now is a Florida resident. He doesn't go back very often. He doesn't have any particular interest in tennis, I don't think. But I don't know. There's always an element of performance with Trump, and there might be part of him which actually welcomes being booed by a well-to-do liberal crowd, as he would see it. So that might play well for his support.
It could do.
You never know.
David Charter, thank you so much for being with us. Always excellent analysis from David Charter, US Assistant Editor for The Times. And you can read David's work at thetimes.com online and in the paper, and that, of course, of the brilliant team over in the US. This is Kate Borsay. Coming up, we'll take a sneak peek inside tomorrow's paper.
The Story, the award-winning daily news podcast from The Times. Listen in the Times Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Looking to grow your investments and generate a long-term income? The Scottish American Investment Company, also known as Saints, could help. Saints has been investing for over 150 years and focuses on growing capital as well as income by investing in a diverse range of companies from around the world. Saints is managed by Bailey Gifford, manager for some of the UK's best-known investment trusts. Find out key information and more at baileygifford.com. As with any investment, capital is at risk and income is not guaranteed.
If my call to the bank really was that important to them, why am I kept waiting and waiting and waiting? Banking shouldn't be this hard. Luckily, Handelsbanken is different. No chatbots, no pressing 9 for more options. Just real conversations with a relationship manager who knows you and understands your needs. Handelsbanken. Banking done differently since 1871. For personal banking, corporate banking and wealth management, search Handelsbanken.
Tomorrow's Times today on Times Radio.
Good evening. Let's take a sneak peek inside tomorrow's paper then. There's a story about jockeys in Japan, police investigations into exposure incidents. But first, some detail about the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. Jeremy Griffin is the executive editor for The Times and Times Radio.
Funny, isn't it, Kate? When we last spoke, we were ruminating on the likelihood that Angela Rayner might resign the following day when we spoke on Thursday, as we awaited the findings of that investigation by Sir Laurie Magnus. But here we are a few days later. Not only is she gone, there's a very different looking cabinet as a result and a new Home Secretary. And I wonder...
Same looking cabinet, but in different positions.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah, they just jigged around a little bit. Yeah. But otherwise, we probably wouldn't be scrutinising the words of Shabana Mahmood, who replaced Yvette Cooper as a woman tasked with sorting out Britain's migrant problems and has promised to be a whatever-it-takes Home Secretary. And she couldn't have timed her elevation better because there was a meeting today with members of the Five Eyes Security Partnership, Britain's closest allies on the intelligence sharing front, which comprises also the United States, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. And it was with representatives from those countries that she discussed a proposal to cut the number of visas granted to countries that delay or refuse returns of their citizens who have no right to remain in the UK. I'm not the sort of person that hangs around, she said, as she promised to go further and faster on tackling that small boats crisis. She said she would come forward with changes to how the European Convention on Human Rights is implemented in Britain, about which she said the balance isn't in the right place, confirming that the UK will play what she's called a leading role in reforming the convention at the European level. The new Home Secretary also signalled she'd press ahead with plans to introduce digital ID cards as part of efforts to clamp down on illegal immigration. We've had a couple of exclusives on that subject in the Times recently. But this suggestion of suspension of visa agreements really stood out. We do expect countries to play ball, play by the rules, and if one of your citizens has no right to be in our country, you do need to